Hello there, it's Andy Ewens from FormaServe once again. In this presentation, I'll be giving you a walkthrough on open source management and how it has changed over the past few years, and boy it has. Then I'll show you how easily we can use open source and include it within our environments. Open source and IBM I is providing us with unbelievable opportunities. With how many other systems would this be possible? Programs that are 40 years old talking to modern day technologies. Sweet.
Let us go back a few years and see when open source first raised its head on IBM I. In 1998, JT Open appeared, the Java toolkit. In 2002, we had Apache HTTP server. In 2006, Zend and PHP popped up and announced Zend server availability. There's been some announcements in the last couple of months that affect this. I'll be covering those later on. Then in 2013 we had Power Ruby. In 2014 IBM decided to make a whole suite of open source programs and tools available to us. It even had its own license program number and a set of group PTFs. We're on our way. Node.js, Python, programming tools, Nginx, etc, etc. And then in 2018 we had RPMs. We'll be talking more about that later. In general, all open source offerings run under the operating system of 7.2 or later. Let us take a step back to 2014 and the 5733 OPS license program. This license program was introduced with empty slots. This was to accommodate future additions to the product set. IBM had to include a number of empty product options so that, as the new products became available, they could be filled by the group Program Temporary Fix or PTF mechanism. This was needed because PTFs could change the name of an option and deliver its contents, but could not create a new option. They needed the blank slots to begin with. And to follow on to that, IBM introduces a new PTF group for open source, SF99225. As you can see from the slide, this group has not been updated since 2017. This is not the way IBM is going now. So what's happening with the 5733 OPS license program now? As we can see, straight in the bin. No longer needed, and IBM gave it an end of life in 2019. So we can remove this license programs from our box. Anyone brave enough to do so? As we can see, it's still on my box. While the PTF delivery method used by 5733 OPS helped get open source tools in front of the IBM installed base, it eventually became clear that it had turned into more of a hindrance. That's because while your typical IBM I administrator is familiar with how to find and apply the PTFs, the PTF process proved confusing for users who were less familiar with the IBM I. In other words, the exact same folks whom IBM was trying to attract to the platform, younger programmers, well versed with modern and mostly open source development tools and methods, were the very ones who had the most trouble with 5733 OPS and its PTF based delivery method. When you factor in the catch-22 situation that ensued, with having to know the name of the newly released 5733 OPS option in order to get them, you have a process that was begging to be streamlined. And that leads me on nicely to RPMs. One of the problems IBM encountered with licensed programs and open source was with dependencies and updates. For example, Node.js might have a dependency on OpenSSL, so this would need to be included on the install. So to get round this, IBM moved over to the Linux world way. They used a utility called Red Hat Package Manager to install softwares, RPM. This is the route IBM now takes to supply IBM I open source software. IBM has created an RPM repository where all the software resides for our open source packages. They are not AIX Unix RPMs, they are IBM I RPMs shipping IBM I software, compiled for and are known to run on IBM I, built on IBM I for IBM I. Moving on to Yum, another acronym for us. Yellow Dog Update Modified. I'll stick with Yum. Yum is an automatic updater and package installer and remover. It automatically handles dependencies for us. Yum has a plug interface for adding simple features. Yum works with software repositories. It uses RPM, in fact. A licensed program and PTF process all in one. Yes. So how do we use Yum? Yum runs in the PACE environment, so we can use these interfaces. 5250 if we call QP2 term. Not a great love myself. Must do a PowerWire article on that one day. Or we can use a remote shell. The options we have for that are the Windows 10 SSH client, part of Windows these days, the Chrome SSH plugin, PuTTY, Git Bash, Open SSH. Personally, I like and use the Git Bash option, but again, it's personal preference, so we have a lot of choice there. Please note that if you're going to use a remote shell, we need the SSHD TCP/IP server up and running. Let us take a look at some of the Yum commands. Firstly, let's take a look at the repos that Yum is looking at. Yum repo list. On here, it's looking at two repositories, IBM and Zend. I'll explain the Zend one later. You would normally only see the IBM repo here. Next, let me show you all the installed packages we have on this box. Yum list installed. Very easy. Here we can see the package name, the version number, and the repo it got it from. And to follow, Yum list updates. So these are updates to our installed packages. And Yum list available. So these are the packages we haven't yet installed. Let me go back to the installed packages. Yum list installed. Here we can see zip installed. Let's say we don't need that anymore. Our file zipping is being used by another method. We can remove it from the box by a quick yum remove zip.ppc64. Next we have a confirmation window. We can see it's checked dependencies, all okay there. So we enter a Y to confirm and away it goes. Let's check our installed list once again. Yum list installed. Zip is no longer installed, so cannot be used. Another very handy command is yum info, then the package name. So if I wanted to find more info about Node, I could put in Node.js. So yum info node 12.ppc64. Here we can see Node 12 is at 12.16.2. So that's how easy it is to use Yum from a command line interface, a CLI. There's a great crib sheet on Yum commands at Red Hat. I'll add that to the list of links for you all. Let us now take a look at the second way to manage open source, ACS. IBM has made it very easy to use and manage open source. Access for Client Solutions, or ACS. ACS allows the management of open source packages. This is the preferred way to manage OSS and has been available since ACS version 1.1.8.0 way back in June 2018. It is the easiest and preferred way to manage open source software. So let me open up ACS. Let us click on Help, then About. Here we can see we are running ACS version 1184, so we can use ACS to manage and update open source. Let me take the Tools option here and we can see Open Source Package Management. If we don't have any open source on our box, it will pop up and tell us, and gives us the option to install it. How neat is that? It's now prompting us to sign onto our box. where it will create a SSH connection to manage the software. Once again, remember you have to have the SSHD server running for this to happen. Don't tick the container box unless you know all about containers. Maybe I'll do a session on containers sometime. Let me know what you think. So what do we need for this all to happen? Your IBM I needs to be able to connect to the internet. This is one way only. I'm not saying that your IBM I needs to be open to the internet for all to see. It just needs to be connected to the internet. If you cannot connect to the internet this way, we now have a couple of options to get around this. The first way is to download the repositories locally. We need to go to IBM's Bitbucket page to show you how to do this. The addresses on the Bitbucket can be seen here. I'll put that in the Q&A so we can all see it. Within the installation section we can see two installed options not using ACS. One offline and one online. Very detailed instructions. Hopefully that will get you going. The second way, which was introduced in the latest ACS release, is to use your PC as an SSH tunnel. This will greatly help sites that struggle with IBM I access to the internet. Once we have signed into the open source management feature, we get the screen we can see here. It is divided into three tabs: installed packages, updates available, and available packages. Let me make this a bit bigger so you can see what is happening. On the first tab, installed, all these packages are ready for us to use. Shows us the installed version number 2, which is handy. If I want to delete a package, I can highlight it and press the remove button. There is a confirmation screen, thankfully. The next tab will show if any of the installed packages have an update. We can select it and then press the upgrade button. Again, we have a confirmation screen. Here we can see we have an upgrade to Git. We use Git extensively, so it would make sense to upgrade it. If I go back to the install tab, Git is showing at 2.10.4-2. Then back to the upgrades, we can see Git is available at 2.26.2.1. So quite a gap there, we need to upgrade it. So to upgrade it, I'll select it, then press the upgrade button. Press Y to confirm, and away we go. So we can see the install there chugging away, going nicely. Says it's all done, so let me check the installed packages. Yes, we are now at 2.26.2. And a further check, let's go into Git, do Git version, and it is showing Git is at 2.26.2. Our packages have been updated. When we upgraded Git, the update process opened a new window and performed the upgrade there. If we take a look at this window, we can see that behind the scenes ACS uses a package manager, in this case Yum. So in reality ACS is just a front end, a fancy GUI to the Yum package manager. So how do we keep on top of all these updates? Here's one solution. To help assist our clients with the updates of open source, we wrote a quick CL program to check if there are any updates to any of the installed programs on their box and update those packages. This program is scheduled to run alongside existing PTF management procedures. Let me show you this program. I'll fire up IDI. It's a bit easier to see than SEU. The first thing the program does is to create an audit log in one of our libraries. This is a multi-member file using the date within the member name. Next, if there is an IFS log from a previous run, delete it. It then uses Yum to check if there are any updates and copies the list of updates into our physical file we created earlier. It then produces a small file of all the packages that need updating and creates a PDF of those that are listed for updates. Next, it uses Yum to update all the necessary packages and sends any output to a file on the IFS, just in case any audit is required. And that is it, a very simple way of scheduling open source updates. I'm sure you could modify this to suit your PTF procedures. This example is in our GitHub repository for you to use. Before we delve into any open source coding, we need an IDE, Integrated Development Environment. We need somewhere to do our development. What options do we have? Where do we start? To be honest, we have lots of options, some chargeable, some free. We have NetBeans, now part of the Apache project, has been used for many years for PHP development. RDI, you might already have a license for this. Microsoft Visual Studio, Microsoft Visual Studio Code, Notepad++, and you could, if you are really cruel to yourself, use 5250 edit file, EDTF. Both RDI and Visual Studio are chargeable, the rest are free of charge options. I'm going to show you my favourite IDE, Microsoft Visual Studio Code. What is Visual Studio Code, or VS Code from now on? VS Code was developed by Microsoft for Windows in 2015, so it's been around a few years now. The lead developers were part of the Eclipse IDE platform, so there are some similarities there. It is a light version of its commercial Visual Studio product and is open source. VS Code is a cross-platform, multi-language code editor which can be used for PHP and Node.js development on the IBM I. The VS Code IDE can be downloaded from code.visualstudio.com. Let's take a look at that. And its GitHub repository, so where all the code lives. VS Code's GitHub repository is at github/Microsoft/VS Code. Here you can help with development as you can with any other open source project. If we click on the Issues tab, we can see any problems people have had or report any issues. Let me open Visual Studio. I have VS Code Insiders installed on my PC, which gives me the latest build. As I said earlier, the lead developers worked on the Eclipse project, so as we can see, the IDE looks very similar to RDI. We have an Explorer pane on the left hand side, with the main code window quite rightly taking up most of the screen. So here we can see some temporal tables SQL, and no, we're not covering that today. So what options do we have for connecting to the IBM I then? We have three connectivity options. The first one is mapping a drive within Windows. The second one is using SFTP, and the third one is using SSH. Let me go through each of these with you. We can map a drive to our IFS and then open it up in code, nice and easy. We'll take a look at that. Enter the IFS file share name. So now we have the X drive that's directly mapped into our IFS folder. Let me find my X drive. We can right click now on that folder and then select VS Code Insiders. And away we go, VS Code now opens in that folder for us. So straight into the X drive, and double clicking on this JSON file opens it up for us. So that's the first option out the way, using a map drive. The next two include a feature called extensions. These are the VS Code equivalent of the Eclipse workspace plugins. We use Visual Studio Code extensions to add new features, themes and lots more. Let me open up extensions by clicking on this icon or Ctrl+Shift+X. Here we can see the extensions I've already installed. If I want to install another theme, I can search for them. I prefer the light themes, to be honest. Had the last 40 years with a dark theme of green on black. The first extension is to help us connect to our server is an SFTP extension. This extension would allow us to develop locally. Then on save, it would auto-save to our IFS. So if we put SFTP into the extension search box, we get all of the SFTP options. Another method is to use a SSH client. This is the option which I use. Let me have a quick word about the first one on the list, the Microsoft option. This has been out for about 6 months now, and unfortunately it doesn't work with the IBM IFS. There is an issue open for this, opened by Liam Allen. Hopefully it will be fixed soon. The one I'm going to select is the second one on the list, SSFS, SSH File Systems. I already have this installed. I'll open up the config for this extension, or you could use Control comma. Here we can see the SSH config, the name of the host, username and password, and the root directory. So once the extension has been installed and configured, we can see another option in our Explorer view, SSH File Systems. So if we expand that, we can see our server. Right click on it and then take the option to connect as a workspace folder. We can now see all IFS folders and away we go. I'll open up our README for this presentation where we can make any changes. One other note on VS Code is we can open a shell directly in the IDE without leaving the editor. We can use Control and apostrophe. This will open the view for us. By default it uses the Microsoft PowerShell, but you can change this if you want, just using the drop down. Mine is using the Git Bash client, as we can see. Well, that wraps up a quick insight into Visual Studio Code. There's loads and loads of resources on the web for VS Code, so that was just a quick insight, but hopefully it's got you going and a bit excited about it. A very good editor. I've been writing a series of articles for the PowerWire newsletter lately, showing how easy it is we can develop a Node.js website, accessing and maintaining a table on the IBM I. I've made this project open source so you can easily use it as a template for your own modernization requirements. It resides in a GitHub repository. So let me show you how easy it is to clone some open source and quickly get it up and running on your box. Firstly, let me go to the GitHub page, copy and paste, let's chance the typos. So this example is in my GitHub and the repository is called node-express-ibmi. Take a look. Here we can see all the files and directories we need for this project. Further down we have the install instructions which we are going to follow. I've got an open SSH client connected to my box, so the first step is to clone the application, where I use git clone and the name of the repository. That's chugging away and that's downloaded now to my box. So all the files now reside on my IFS. We now have to change directory into that node-express-ibmi directory. The next stage is to install all the application's dependencies using Node Package Manager, or NPM. So here we type in npm install or npm I for us lazy ones. It's now installing all the required packages. Let us just wait while that completes. There it goes. Once all the dependencies are installed, we can start the application. So we start the application again using Node Package Manager, this time npm start. So our server is now up and running on port 3333. Then point your favourite browser, mine is Microsoft Edge today, to HTTPS, the name of your IBM I, and the port number 3333, and voila! our application is up and running. The first step is to sign on to our IBM I. We don't want any old user getting into our system. It lets us know if the user is authorized. Click on the button to go into the employee database. Here we can see all our employees. If we click on the icon on the left hand side, it allows us to update an employee. So we can change any of the information there, confirm the update, and it tells us the employee has been updated. So we can add a new employee here if we want to. So add a new employee. Who should we pick today? Good old Jimmy Greaves. He works in our IT department. Confirm the ad. Employee has been added, it's told us. All good to go. So Jimmy is now on our database. If we want to delete an employee, click on the icon on the right, press the confirm. He is now gone. It refreshes it and we can see that employee has now gone. Let us take a look at the Node console to see what is happening behind the scenes for this application. Firstly, we can see the server is running on our server called Galatea on port 3333. Then we get a message that Andy has signed in. Next we go on to the employee script where we update our employee number 37. We then add our new employee, Jimmy Greaves. Then the user moved on to deleted employee number 269. And then it just sits there waiting for the next instructions. So a good audit trail of what the user has performed. If we need a more permanent audit, we could write this information to a log file. I'll leave that one for you. So a simple update of a table on the IBM I using Node.js. Very simple, but it will provide you with a good template if you wish to use it, if you want to make changes to it. In this demo, I'll show you how easily you can get a basic website up and running using Node.js on IBM I. It's going to use a framework called Node Express. Lots on the web about Node Express, so I won't bore you here. In our shell, we take these steps. npm install -- save express. So that's installing the Express framework for us. Once that's finished, we then run npm install express-generator. This installs the file structure for us, so we don't have to worry about that. That is now completed. We then run express with the name of our application --view pug. So in this example I'm going to call it iPower. Here we can see all the folders and the files it's generating for us. We cd into that directory once it's done. We then run npm install. Once that's installed all the required packages, we run npm start. And that's got our basic website up and running. We then point our browser to http your IBM I, and it runs under port 3000. That is it. We have our website up and running on our IBM I using Node.js and the Express framework. How easy was that? Running half a dozen steps, we've got our website up and running. Fantastic. I'll open up VS Code and take a look at the folder structure this has given us. We go into iPower. The main two directories here are the /roots and the /views directories. These are the main two directories you need to be concerned with. Forget all the rest, doesn't matter at this stage. If we take a look in the roots directory, we can see two files in there, the index.js and a user.js file. When we first pointed our browser to the site, it called the index.js file. If we open the index.js file, we can see that it is looking for a URL of /, then display the index view, passing a variable called title with the value of express. Roots are very similar to RPG programs using a display file. If we take a look in the /views directory, we can see an index.pug file. This is the display file for index.js. Let me open the pug view file. Here we can see it uses the pug language, lots on Google about pug, and renders on the screen in HTML format. Here we can see the title variable being used twice, once as the heading 1 and after the welcome to. If we go back to our browser, and the title variable is highlighted here. Let us make a change. We go back into the index.js file in the roots directory, and we change the title to iPower 2020. Then we restart our application, press Ctrl+C to interrupt it, and then go back to npm start to fire it up again. That's all started fine. And refresh our browser, and we can now see our changes. We can now see welcome to iPower 2020. It is that easy. Let us quickly add another page to our website. In the roots directory, we will copy the index.js to welcome.js. Let's open up the welcome.js and make our changes there. On the res render, we now want that to say welcome instead of index, and we don't want to pass it any parameters. We then go into the views directory and copy the index.pug to welcome.pug, and we open that up. We will just paste some static data in here, taking it from the IUG site. Format it out a bit. Pug files work off tabs, so everything that's indented more than the P there is going to be within that paragraph tag itself. Then we point our browser to /welcome, and what do we get? We get an error here because we haven't told our main router what to do with a /welcome route. So it displays a 404 page not found error. Let's go in and fix that. The main player in a Node Express application is the app.js file. This is found in the root directory. This is the file we have to amend to let it know we have a new route, the /welcome route. Let me open this file. On line 8 I'll copy this and change the variable to welcome router, and it points to the /routes/welcome. Then we need to copy line 24 and change the use to /welcome and welcome router. And that's all we need to do to let our application know we have a new page. Let's go back to our server, our shell window. We need to stop and start it, so Ctrl+C, then npm start. Our server is back up and running. Now, if we point our browser to the welcome page, we should get our new route. Let's take a look. And there we go, our new page up and running. All very simple. And that's how we use the Node Express framework. Very simple to get a site up and running quickly and add new pages to it. Let us take a quick moment to talk about PHP and Zend, as there have been changes there recently. Just as with IBM and open source, Zend had an old way and now a new way. As I said earlier in the presentation, Zend came to the IBM I in 2006. They provided Zend Server, which included the PHP runtime. They provided a free basic server license as well as a chargeable enterprise and support options. Additionally, they also added an Eclipse IDE called Zend Studio. I wasn't a lover myself, but that's another story. And Zend DBI, a MariaDB MySQL implementation for IBM I, which basically allows you to store MySQL database in DB2 for I. So originally, very similar to IBM, Zend Server was installed as a licensed program, normally the last one on the list, and it was maintained by PTFs. So that's the old way. We can see I still have it installed on my box. I, along with many others, badgered IBM for more of an open PHP option. At this time we had many open source languages available for us, Python, Node.js, etc, etc. Unlike the PHP offering we had, these languages had no commercial link. So why did we need the Zend PHP link? At the end of 2019, IBM and Zend came up with the goods. We now have native PHP on our box. A result. So how do we get native PHP on our box? The trick is to add the Zend repository to our Yum repository list. Using a shell, type yum config manager and add the Zend repo. Then to check our repository list, as we've used before, use the command yum repo list. We can now see our Zend repo. If I go over to my shell, let me check the version of PHP I'm running. PHP-V shows the version number. And PHP-I shows me PHP info. Always a good check to see what's happening with PHP. Let us see this on the ACS package management. Go into the installed packages. Here we can see that PHP at version 7.3.1.2 and it installed it from the Zend repo. Let me check if there are any updates. Yeah, a slight update there, 7.3.1.3. I'll update it while we're here. Let me speed this up a bit. It's chugging through all the PHP packages. That's all done. And now we have PHP at version 7.3.1.3, all good to use. In fact, Zend have now removed the free basic 1-year support option. All support is now chargeable. So that's how we now use PHP on our IBM I. So if you need support for open source, where do you go? If you have IBM software maintenance, it includes support for the install of RPM packages. So if you have any problem with a package that will not install, give IBM a call. It also includes OpenSSH and OpenSSL. They're included in SWMA, as is the Apache HTTP server. Then we have community support, as in free. Defects can be raised on IBM's community channels, such as GitHub and Bitbucket. Help with communities. Have key personnel. Developers join the community's ecosystems built around the products you use. Join some Node forums, for example, or like we did, help Zend testing PHP on the IBM I. These people can be developers, reviewers, testers, or even just keep up with ongoing discussions in the various forums. Many companies provide commercial support if that's what you require. Note that IBM also provides some level of free community support for important integration pieces, including some Node packages, iToolkit for instance, IDB connector, the loopback connector and ODBC, as well as the Python packages, iToolkit and IBM_DB. As you would expect from IBM, there is no support for 5733 OPS. That's long gone. If you need support for PHP, maybe take a look at Zen's offering. And if you need support for Ruby, I would take a look at Power Ruby's offering. So, as we can see, using open source, there's lots and lots of help out there. So if you need help, shout out to me. Give me a shout, I'm sure we can help you.
So that's given you a quick insight into the world of open source and IBM i. Open source is now an integral part of IBM i. You and your company should not ignore open source, you will regret it. IBM will not be stopping here. This is a continuous stream of programs and features that are being made available to us. We need to embrace it. If you don't, the youngsters, or sprogs as we say in the Navy, will be snapping at your heels to get there first. I'm sure you've heard of IBM's customer stories. Check out my company's customer story of how we use Node.js on the IBM i to communicate with HMRC, the UK taxman. I hope you found my presentation interesting and given you some food for thought. Thank you.